American national government. This is Dr. Patrick Stewart. Chapter 6, Interest Groups. In this segment, we'll be considering the learning objectives of showing who belongs to interest groups and why they belong, and illustrate and explain the growth of interest groups over the past half-century plus. So the first question is who belongs to interest groups? And there's actually a fairly simple answer to this. Basically, most everyone does. And this has been something that has been the case since very early in our nation's history. Alexis de Tocqueville in the early 19th century stated that no other nation has the principle of association been more successfully used or applied to a greater multitude of objects than in America. Now, this might be potentially due to the fact that Americans come from all over the world, and they reconfigure their lifestyles and move away from traditional groupings, which include families. And in doing so, they develop other forms of connection with other Americans. As a result, we have a lot of groups, organizations, and clubs, over 100,000 of them in America. Taking a look at this, we see that a total of nearly 8 in 10 people are affiliated with voluntary organizations. And as we see, the charitable social service organizations are the ones that, a plurality of Americans belong to. And actually, very interestingly, liberal and conservative groups make up a very small proportion of those who are involved in interest groups and voluntary organizations. So, if you think about what you belong to, you can belong to such groups as the NRA, or a religious group, or a sports group, or a professional or educational group. And certainly, as you move on in your career, you'll find yourself belonging to multiple organizations to keep on top of trends. Now, of course, the question is, why would anyone join an organization in the first place? And there's some pretty good reasons for this. Now, the byproduct theory, which is based upon the rational choice model of behavior, suggests that people join interest groups when the benefits of doing so outweigh the costs. In other words, like most rational choice models with the assumption that humans are rational, there's this weighing of the costs and benefits. But the question is, what are the benefits? Well, first of all, you can have material benefits. Now, these are the tangible rewards or gained through membership. And this might be if you get discounts on your membership, through your membership to shop at different places. Solidary benefits are the sense of membership and identification, even having fun. And this is basically the idea that if you belong with other people, you have this connection to them. You can identify yourself with this group, and as a result, you might continue on with membership with a group through this connection. But it can also be purposive. Now, these are benefits that are derived from feeling good about contributing to a worthy cause. Now, for most people, what is a worthy cause may differ. And ultimately, when you look at these three different types of benefits, whether they're material, solidary, or purposive, there's likely going to be multiple different things going on at the same time. So one thing might or might not predominate. Now, when we think about why these groups actually come to be, we go back to the rational choice model of behavior and suggest through exchange theory that there is a rational exchange between an entrepreneur and group members for these benefits. So ultimately, there's this almost a marketplace connection between the entrepreneur and the group members to get these benefits. So ultimately, the rational choice model of behavior suggests fairly effectively why people join groups, although as you can see, a lot of these reasons aren't necessarily measured very well by cost-benefit analysis. But when we look at these groups, we have to understand three different concepts: public goods, free riders, and collective action. Now, a public good is a benefit that is provided to everyone. It cannot be withheld from people who do not contribute to the cost of providing the good. So we're looking at such things as healthy air, clean water, national defense, and so on. And these are things that we all benefit from, regardless of how much we contributed to it. Now, collective action refers to many people working together to ensure that the public good is being produced. And this right here is a very interesting thing, especially when you consider the rational choice model that assumes individuals are, well, first of all, and completely individuals. Because people are perhaps more so group members than anything else. Now, there are those who do not join the interest groups or participate in the group activities and enjoy the benefits of these group activities without incurring any of the costs. And these individuals are referred to as free riders. In other words, they're riding on other people's efforts and work for free. Now, this is the sort of thing that you can be a free rider without knowing that you're a free rider, or it might be something that you are well aware of doing. So let's take a look at interest group growth and speciation, because one of the things that we have seen is that interest groups in the United States has grown immensely over the past century, half century plus. So, and this has especially been the case in Washington, D.C., which between 1959 and 2008 grew 152%. And we'll take a look at some more recent figures when it comes to this. Now, part of this is due to the growth of single issues groups that take positions and are active on one specific issue. The idea being is that they dominate in an area, and this is something that the book refers to as far as developing an issue niche, in which case you can dominate it, and because of the fact that you're taking extreme uncompromising positions for this, you can go ahead claim to be the only one there and take control of it. Now, the problem with this is this might lead to politics that is very extreme and leads to a lack of compromise down the road. Now, we also have think tanks that are connected with interest groups. Now, some of them do some exceptional work, but ultimately there's a blurring of the line between research and advocacy. Even if it's just the choice of issue areas to do research on, these think tanks can certainly influence what goes on politically. And certainly we have to be aware of bad research or research that is done rather unethically to come up with results that support the views of those who fund the research. So ultimately, understanding where research comes from becomes very important. Let's take a look at the uneven patterns of growth in interest groups, because this is very interesting when we consider the movement from 1959 to 1980 and from 1990 to 2008, is that, interestingly, labor unions, associations, and federations have diminished extensively. Matter of fact, we've seen that only 239 groups that support the interests of labor unions, associations, federations, in other words, the workers, are in existence. On the other hand, business groups are rather extensive, with over 4,000 of them. Now, ultimately, what we're looking at here is some extensive growth in some areas, but essentially maintenance in others. Now, finally, if we take a look at lobbying group registrations, we see that business dominates within this. Even when we consider health, agriculture, energy, and natural resources as separate entities, they're still involved with profit one way or the other. So certainly, spending and registrations in DC is rather extensive. American national governments.